There is a patch of Earth in the American West where the laws of physics do not apply. Imagine a place where shadows detach themselves from the ground and walk upright. Imagine a sky that opens up like a bleeding wound to let impossible machines enter our world. Imagine a silence so heavy, so watchful, that it feels like the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for you. For hundreds of years, the local Native American tribes have refused to step foot on this soil. They call it cursed. They whisper stories of a shape-shifting witch, a skinwalker that patrols the ridge, hunting for souls. For decades, the United States government has classified this land as a threat to national security. They have buried reports, they have silenced witnesses, they have tried to lock the gates. But secrets have a way of digging themselves out of the grave. This is not a ghost story. This is not science fiction. This is the true documented account of the most studied, most terrified, and most haunted location on the face of the planet. Welcome to the Uinta Basin of Utah. Welcome to Skinwalker Ranch. And it all began with a family who just wanted a quiet life. To truly understand the nightmare, you have to understand the isolation. In the Uinta Basin, silence is not empty, it is a weight. For the Sherman family, that silence became a canvas upon which the phenomenon painted its most terrifying masterpieces. Following the incident with the bulletproof wolf, the ranch did not settle down. Instead, it seemed to wake up. The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to hostility. The air around the homestead grew thick, charged with static electricity that would make the hair on your arms stand up even in the dead calm of a summer afternoon. The family began to realize they were not living on the land. They were living inside something living. The psychological siege began with the cattle. For a rancher, cattle are not just assets, they are a livelihood, a responsibility. Terry Sherman knew every cow, every calf. He knew the sounds of a distressed herd. One afternoon, amidst a blinding snowstorm, he walked out to check on a heifer that was due to give birth. The snow was falling in thick sheets, visibility reduced to a few feet. He found the cow standing alone near a cluster of trees. She was calm, too calm. As Terry approached, he realized the snow around her was undisturbed, a pristine white blanket. But when he circled to her flank, the horror revealed itself. The calf was gone. Not born and lost, but removed. There was no blood on the snow, no afterbirth, no struggle. And then he saw the incision, a perfect, laser-smooth circle cut into the cow's side. He reached inside. The calf had been extracted, the internal organs removed with a precision that mocked modern surgery. And yet the cow was alive. She stood there, blinking, seemingly unaware that she had been hollowed out. She died minutes later. Terry stood in the howling wind, his hands shaking, looking for tire tracks, footprints, anything. There was nothing, just the white silence. This became a ritual. For the next 18 months, the Shermans would lose 20% of their herd to this silent butcher. Sometimes the animals vanished entirely, only to be found days later, dropped from a great height into trees or power lines, their bones shattered. Other times they were found in the fields, flattened into the dirt as if crushed by a giant invisible thumb. The predators of Utah, coyotes, buzzards, would not touch these carcasses. A dead cow usually disappears in days, stripped to the bone by scavengers. But the mutilated cattle on Skinwalker Ranch would rot untouched for months. The local wildlife knew to stay away. The smell of wrongness was stronger than the smell of meat.
Then the phenomenon moved closer. It came to the house. It started as a game. Gwen would unload groceries, placing cans of soup on the counter. She would turn her back to close the refrigerator, and when she turned back, the cans were gone. She would find them days later, stacked in a perfect pyramid inside the microwave, or balanced precariously on the ceiling beams of the barn. It was childish, annoying, but then the game turned dark. They began to hear voices. Not the wind, not the house settling. Distinct, disembodied voices floating over the cornfields. One night, Terry and his son were out checking the irrigation lines. Suddenly, the air above them erupted with the sound of heavy machinery, unseen, massive gears grinding, digging into the earth. It was deafening, shaking the ground beneath their boots. They shouted to each other, shining flashlights into the empty sky. There was nothing there, just the stars. And then a voice spoke. It came from the darkness, a disembodied guttural sound that seemed to lack a larynx, speaking a language that sounded almost like a distorted mix of Russian and Native American dialect. It was mocking. It was laughing. The nights became a war of attrition. The family began to see the shadow men. These were not tricks of the light. They were three-dimensional silhouettes, darker than the night around them, standing 7 feet tall. They would peer into the bedroom windows. Gwen would wake up, paralyzed with fear, to see a tall, dark figure standing at the foot of her bed. It had no face, just a void where features should be. It would stand there for hours, observing, before dissolving into the wall like smoke. The feeling it radiated was not just fear, it was hatred, pure, concentrated malice. The breaking point for the family, the moment that shattered their resolve, involved their most trusted allies, the dogs. The Shermans had 3 prize ranch dogs, fearless animals that had fought off coyotes and guarded the children. One night, a blue orb appeared near the tree line. It was about the size of a ballsball, humming with a low electric frequency. It bobbed and weaved, seemingly taunting the dogs. Instinct took over. The 3 dogs, teeth bared, sprinted into the darkness after the light. Terry called them back, screaming into the night, but their blood was up. They chased the orb into a dense thicket of Russian olive trees. Terry heard them barking furiously. Then a sudden sharp yelp. Then a silence, so profound it felt like the world had stopped turning. Terrified, he waited until morning. At first light, he walked to the thicket. The brush was dense, difficult to move through. When he reached the center of the clearing, he fell to his knees. There were 3 circles of scorched earth. In the center of each circle lay a greasy black lump. The dogs had been incinerated. No fire damage to the surrounding trees, no sign of a struggle, just 3 piles of biological residue where his loyal companions had stood. The energy required to do this, to instantly vaporize flesh and bone, was beyond anything Terry could comprehend. He realized then that his rifle was a toy. His fences were suggestions. He was not the master of this land. He was a lab rat in a cage, and the experiment was getting violent.
They stopped sleeping in the bedrooms. The entire family, parents and 2 children, dragged their mattresses into the main living room. They boarded up the windows. They slept in a huddle, weapons loaded and cocked, taking shifts. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind sent adrenaline spiking through their veins. They were exhausted, their eyes sunken, their nerves frayed. The ranch was draining the life out of them. It was feeding on their fear. The terrifying realization was that the phenomenon seemed to anticipate them. If they planned to go to the left field, the activity would happen there. If they decided to set a trap, the trap would be dismantled by invisible hands. It was telepathic. It was always one step ahead. By 1996, the Shermans were broken. They had lost cattle, lost money, and were losing their minds.
When the news broke and Robert Bigelow's team arrived in their black SUVs offering to buy the ranch, Terry didn't haggle. He didn't try to drive up the price. He just wanted out. He wanted to save his family. But as he handed over the keys to the billionaire scientists, he gave them a warning. He told them that the entity was not just a ghost or an alien, it was a trickster. It lied, it changed shapes, and it never, ever slept. As the Shermans drove away, looking back at the ridge one last time, they hoped they were leaving the nightmare behind. But they didn't know the nature of the hitchhiker. They didn't know that once you look into the abyss at Skinwalker Ranch, the abyss doesn't just look back, it packs a bag and follows you home. With the family gone, the stage was set for the next act. The scientists moved in. They brought magnetometers, spectrum analyzers, night vision cameras, and Geiger counters. They were rational men of science, convinced that everything had an explanation. They were about to find out that their equipment was useless against a force that could rewrite the laws of physics on a whim. The era of the family was over. The era of the hunt had begun. But on this ranch, the hunter and the hunted are often the same thing. The dust from the Shermans' departure had barely settled when the convoy arrived. It was 1996, and the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, descended upon the ranch like a military occupying force. They did not bring Bibles or holy water. They brought the heavy artillery of the scientific method. Robert Bigelow, the billionaire aerospace magnate, wasn't interested in ghost stories. He wanted data. He poured millions into the property, erecting perimeter fences, installing high-resolution surveillance cameras on every ridge, and setting up a command and control center in a double-wide trailer that hummed with the sound of servers and monitors. The team was comprised of biochemists, physicists, former law enforcement officers, and intelligence agents. They were the best of the best. They believed that if something existed in our physical reality, it could be measured, recorded, and explained. They were about to learn a humbling lesson. You cannot measure something that refuses to play by your rules. The ranch did not hide from them. In fact, it seemed to welcome the challenge. Almost immediately, the equipment, state-of-the-art sensors designed to detect magnetic anomalies and radiation, began to fail. Batteries fully charged would drain to zero in seconds. Cameras would shut off inexplicably, only to turn back on the moment the phenomenon had passed. Cables were ripped out of their housings, not by animals, but with the force of human hands, leaving shredded wires dangling in the wind. But it was the psychological warfare that truly rattled the scientists. Dr. Colm Kelleher, the Institute's deputy administrator, spent hundreds of nights on the ranch. He describes the atmosphere not as empty, but as watchful. One night, Kelleher and a colleague were stationed on a ridge, scanning the darkness with thermal imaging binoculars. Below them, the basin was a sea of black ink. Suddenly, a faint amber light appeared in the center of the field. It wasn't a flashlight. It didn't cast a beam. It was a self-contained glow, growing in intensity. As they watched, breathless, the light began to expand, shifting from a ball into a vertical structure. It looked like a tunnel, a three-dimensional aperture opening in the fabric of the night sky. Through their optics, they saw the impossible. From within the tunnel, a large black humanoid figure began to crawl. It didn't walk, it pulled itself through the hole in reality, struggling as if moving against a heavy current. It dropped to the ground and scrambled into the darkness. Then the tunnel snapped shut, shrinking back into a single point of light before vanishing. The scientists rushed to the location, their hearts pounding against their ribs. They found tracks in the snow, massive clawed footprints that were unlike any bear or mountain lion. But the tracks told a terrifying story. They started in the middle of the field and ended in the middle of the field. The creature had come from nowhere and returned to nowhere. It was a direct violation of the laws of physics, a demonstration that the ranch was a doorway. The phenomenon was not just showing off, it was hunting. The team brought in golden retriever guard dogs housed in a secure kennel near the trailer. One night, the scientists heard a commotion. They ran outside to find the kennel locked, the chain-link fence intact, but inside, the dogs were cowering in the corner, whimpering, and in the center of the pen, standing impossibly large, was a creature. It looked like a wolf, but its head was too big, its eyes glowing with a cold yellow luminescence. It stared at the scientists, unafraid. One of the security officers, a man trained in combat, drew his weapon and fired. The bullet should have killed it. Instead, the creature didn't even flinch. It simply dissolved. One moment, it was solid, breathing, menacing. The next, it was gone, leaving only the smell of wet dog and ozone. The dogs in the kennel were traumatized, refusing to eat for days.
The trickster intelligence became undeniable. The NIDS team realized that the phenomenon was precognitive. It knew where the cameras were pointed, and it would perform its antics in the blind spots. If they set a trap in the east pasture, the activity would explode in the west. It was mocking them. On one occasion, a research scientist left a bag of heavy equipment on a table in the locked trailer. He walked out for 5 minutes. When he returned, the bag was gone. They searched the entire compound. Hours later, they found the bag. It was balanced delicately on top of a telephone pole, 30 feet in the air. There were no footprints at the base of the pole, no ladder marks. It was a feat of strength and levitation, performed solely to confuse and frustrate the team. But the most chilling aspect was the biological experimentation. The cattle mutilations continued right under the noses of the researchers. In one harrowing incident, the team had tagged a calf and was monitoring it closely. In broad daylight, with scientists less than a few hundred yards away, the calf vanished. They searched the field. Nothing. 45 minutes later, they found the calf. It had been returned to the field, but it was a gruesome display. The animal had been completely exsanguinated, drained of blood. Its internal organs were folded neatly on the grass beside the carcass. The cuts were surgical, cauterized by high heat. There was no blood on the grass, no predator tracks. The timeline was impossible. To kill, drain, and dissect an animal of that size would take a team of butchers hours. The ranch had done it in minutes, in silence, while being watched. The NIDS era also brought the blue meanies, small, fast-moving orbs of blue light that induced overwhelming fear. When these orbs appeared, the temperature would plummet. Scientists reported feeling a sudden crushing depression, a sense of doom so heavy it forced them to their knees. One researcher, physically fit and skeptical, was hit by a beam of light from one of these orbs. Within weeks, he developed a rare, aggressive autoimmune disease that nearly killed him. The message was clear: you are not the observer, you are the subject. By 2004, the NIDS team was exhausted. They had thousands of pages of data, photos of strange lights, readings of magnetic spikes, and soil samples saturated with unexplained radiation. But they had no smoking gun. They had no body. They had no craft. The phenomenon was too fluid, too intelligent to be captured in a test tube. Bigelow shut down the NIDS operation, but the data didn't disappear. It went into the shadows. The government had been watching, and they were about to step in. The failure of private science paved the way for the entry of the Defense Intelligence Agency. The ranch was no longer just a haunted house. It was now considered a threat to national security. If an unknown force could penetrate U.S. airspace, manipulate human consciousness, and ignore the laws of physics, the Pentagon needed to own it. And so, the black budget opened up. A secret program known as AWASAP was born, and the ranch became the epicenter of the most classified UFO investigation in history. The scientists left, but the soldiers were coming, and the hitchhiker was waiting to follow them home to the suburbs of Washington, D.C., spreading the infection from the isolated desert of Utah to the halls of power in the capital. The nightmare was about to go national. If NIDS was the scientific approach, what followed was the militarization of the paranormal.
It is 2007. In the halls of the U.S. Capitol, Senator Harry Reid holds a secret meeting with intelligence officials. A scientist from the Defense Intelligence Agency, Dr. James Lakatsky, had visited the ranch briefly. He didn't see a UFO. He didn't see a monster. He stood in the living room of the homestead and felt something penetrate his mind. It was a warning, a visceral sensation that he was being scanned by a predator. When he looked at a spectral analysis chart later, he realized the ranch wasn't just land. It was a complex, shifting biological weapon. Based on his terrified report, the U.S. government approved $22 million for a black budget program, AAWSAP. The objective changed. It was no longer about, is it real? It was about, is it a threat? And more importantly, can we weaponize it? But the phenomenon did not respect security clearances. As battle-hardened intelligence officers and special forces personnel began to tour the ranch, a new horrifying pattern emerged. They called it the Hitchhiker Effect. The ranch was not staying in Utah. It was attaching itself to the observers like a spiritual parasite and following them home to the suburbs of Washington, D.C., spreading the infection from the isolated desert of Utah to the halls of power in the Capitol. The nightmare was about to go national. The reports from AWASAP read like the script of a horror movie, but they were stamped top secret. They detailed biological effects on human observers. Soldiers reported radiation sickness, burns, and cognitive degradation. Some developed autoimmune diseases that baffled doctors. The phenomenon was capable of manipulating human perception. Two officers standing 10 feet apart would see two completely different things. One might see a craft, the other might see a creature. It suggested that the entity was bypassing the optic nerve and projecting images directly into the brain. It was hacking the human mind. The government scientists began to theorize that the ranch was not a location for aliens, but something far more complex. Was it a control system, a mechanism designed to test the boundaries of human belief? Or was it an interdimensional immune system that attacked anyone who tried to probe too deep? The terror reached a fever pitch when the phenomenon began to simulate reality. Officers reported seeing human entities on the ranch, men in trench coats, silent and watching, who would vanish when approached. They saw military helicopters that made no sound and had no markings, performing maneuvers that would tear a real hopper apart. As if the ranch was holding up a mirror to the military, mimicking their equipment, mocking their authority. By 2011, the funding for AWASAP dried up. The results were too terrifying, too inconclusive, and perhaps too dangerous to keep on the books. The government officially stepped back, burying the reports in the bowels of the Pentagon. But the damage was done. The people who had touched the ranch were changed forever. They carried the infection in their memories, in their blood, and in the shadows of their homes.
In 2016, Robert Bigelow, having spent millions and 20 years chasing a ghost that refused to be caught, decided to sell. He was done. The ranch had won. He sold the property to a mysterious buyer, a man who flew in on a private helicopter wearing a tailored suit and a look of grim determination. His name was Brandon Fugal. He was a commercial real estate tycoon, a man of faith, and a man with the resources to bring the ranch into the 21st century. Fugal didn't want to hide the ranch. He wanted to crack it open. He brought in a new team: Travis Taylor, an astrophysicist with NASA connections, Eric Bard, a brilliant mind for data, and a full camera crew. The era of secrecy was over. The era of the secret of Skinwalker Ranch had begun. But the entity, lying dormant beneath the red dust, felt the vibrations of the new trucks arriving. It felt the ground-penetrating radar pinging its depths, and it woke up, angrier than ever. The modern team was about to make a discovery that would shift the conversation from ghosts to machines. They were about to look down. It is 2016.
The black SUVs of the government have departed, taking their secrets with them. Enter Brandon Fugel, a man of immaculate suits and unshakable faith, who purchased the ranch not to weaponize it, but to understand it. He assembled a team unlike any before. Dr. Travis Taylor, a literal rocket scientist with clearance at the highest levels of the US government. Eric Bard, a physicist who treats data like holy scripture, and a fearless security team. They did not come to camp out in the dark. They came to declare war on the unknown using the most advanced technology on Earth. But as soon as they powered up their equipment, the ranch changed its tactics. It stopped whispering and started screaming. The team discovered something chilling, a specific radio frequency, 1.6 gigahertz, that broadcasts directly from the sky above the ranch. Every time this signal appears, chaos follows. It is like a warning siren. When the signal spikes, cameras die, GPS trackers malfunction, and UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, appear. It is as if the ranch has a heartbeat, and that heartbeat is digital. But the real horror wasn't in the sky, it was buried in the earth. The team focused their attention on the Mesa, a rocky ridge overlooking the property. Ground-penetrating radar revealed something massive buried deep within the rock. It wasn't natural. It was a dome-shaped object, hundreds of feet wide, metallic and dense. When they tried to drill into the Mesa to reach it, the ranch struck back with brutal precision. Thomas Winterton, the ranch superintendent, suddenly fell ill. He wasn't just sick, his head was swelling. Doctors found a subgaleal hematoma, a pooling of blood between his skull and scalp, typically caused by severe blunt force trauma. But Thomas hadn't hit his head. The injury was identical to the effects of focused microwave radiation. The ranch had essentially microwaved his brain to stop him from digging. Another team member was hospitalized with mysterious organ failure. They were getting too close to the source. Desperate for answers, Dr. Taylor decided to poke the bear. They began launching rockets directly into the triangle area, a zone where the 1.6 gigahertz signal was strongest. What happened next defied all logic. As the rockets ascended, they hit an invisible ceiling. Fuses meant to detonate at specific altitudes failed. Cameras on the rockets showed UAPs darting past at impossible speeds, observing the launches. In one experiment, a laser beam projected into the sky was actually bent by a gravitational anomaly. The air above the ranch wasn't just air, it was a distorted lens of reality. They found evidence of wormholes, transient portals that opened for split seconds. Thermal cameras captured spheres of cool air manifesting instantly, from which small, fast-moving objects would emerge. The data suggests that Skinwalker Ranch is not just a haunted place, it is a machine, a massive interdimensional transit hub that has been operating on autopilot for thousands of years, and we are just the ants crawling over its surface, wondering why the ground is humming. Conclusion: the mirror of the unknown. As the sun sets over the Uinta Basin tonight, casting long purple shadows across the sagebrush, Skinwalker Ranch remains silent, but it is a deceptive silence. We have journeyed from the ancient curses of the Ute tribe, through the terrified nights of the Sherman family, past the baffled scientists of NIDS, and into the classified files of the Pentagon. We have seen bulletproof wolves, portals that open like eyes in the sky, and radiation that targets the human brain. And yet, after decades of investigation and millions of dollars, we are left with a single terrifying truth. Skinwalker Ranch is not a puzzle to be solved, it is a mirror. When we look at it with fear, it gives us monsters. When we look at it with science, it gives us anomalies that break our physics. When we look at it with military aggression, it gives us a weapon. It reflects our own consciousness back at us, magnified and distorted. It is a precognitive sentient intelligence, a force that knows what we are going to do before we do it. The most disturbing possibility is not that there are aliens at Skinwalker Ranch. The most disturbing possibility is that the ranch is the alien. The land itself is alive, aware, and vastly more intelligent than we are. It is a cosmic laboratory, and we are the lab rats. Perhaps the Ute elders were right all along. Some doors are not meant to be opened. Some places on this earth are not ours. They belong to something else, something that watches us from the shadows, amused by our rockets and our radars, waiting for us to take one step too close to the edge. So the next time you look up at the night sky and see a star that seems a little too bright or moves a little too fast, remember the lesson of Skinwalker Ranch. We are not alone, and on this planet, we are certainly not in charge.